Hello, I am Baal Kadmon, and I want to thank you for watching and listening to this podcast. Today I'm going to discuss the pre-release of my book, Rabbi Isaac Luria, The Lion of the Kabbalah. This is part of a new series I'm creating called The Jewish Mystics. I will also be creating a Christian Mystics and an Islamic Mystics series as well. Rabbi Isaac Luria is a very special person. He has influenced all of the Kabbalah. Everything that you ever read on the Kabbalah has his signature on it, and many people don't know that. So in this book, I'm going to cover all of that, and in this podcast, I'm going to read the first 2 chapters of this book. It is meant to be released in March, but I'll probably have it released earlier than that. I hope you enjoy these 2 chapters. Introduction. When one thinks of the Kabbalah, they often think of the 10 emanations of the Tree of Life. It is by far the most popular of the Kabbalistic symbols, and rightfully so. It is also one of the most, comprehensible of the Kabbalistic principles. Of course, within it contains deep mysteries, but if one were to attempt to describe its function, it can be done so with ease. This is the aspect of Kabbalah most people are exposed to. There is another deeper side of Kabbalah most people do not know of, and that is the Kabbalistic system created by Rabbi Isaac Luria, also known as the Ari. Despite this, his work has influenced modern Kabbalistic scholarship to such an extent that the average reader would have no idea that these ideas were actually from him. In this book, I will discuss this great rabbi and his work, and how important he was to Jewish mysticism. In fact, without him, we wouldn't have most of the Kabbalistic understanding we do now. Every single work on Kabbalah released to this day is influenced by his work. In this book, we will cover my experience with Luria's work and my visit to his tomb, the Kabbalah in brief, Luria in his early days and his energy, the atmosphere that cultivated his Kabbalistic powers, his wide-ranging impact on Kabbalah and the occult, a synopsis of many of his known works, and finally, Lurianic Kabbalistic meditations you can do on your own. With that said, let us continue on. Why I am writing this book. Before I get into the Kabbalah and Isaac Luria himself, I would like to discuss my experience with Rabbi Isaac Luria's energy. In the late 80s and early 90s, I was going through a tremendous spiritual change, the kind of change that set me on the current path that I'm on now. Often these forks in the road are critical and can set the tone for the rest of your life. During this time, I grappled with what seems to be a rather common issue for some of us on this path. In my soul, I knew all along that I was, I guess you could say, a polytheist and an occultist. My mind and spirit simply gravitated in that direction. That is not to say that I don't believe that the gods and goddesses aren't simply emanations of one divinity, but I was simply comfortable frolicking with the various emanations as if they were singular entities. This was always part of me. But then I needed to grapple with the faiths of my family and what they were raised with. My family ran the gamut of monotheistic religions, like many of you, with an undertone of hostility towards magic. I was lucky, however, that my mother and my grandmothers on both sides dabbled in witchcraft of various traditions. It was more my father and his family that I had to reckon with. He was a Middle Eastern Jew of Moroccan and Yemenite descent. We also have Islam in there somewhere. My father was not religious by any means, but he wanted me to settle down and marry a good Jewish woman and become a doctor. I know, That is a horrible stereotype, but that is exactly what was expected of me. Anyway, this isn't an autobiography, so I won't bore you with the more mundane details of my life. But during this time, my father was critically ill, an illness that would, in the end, take his life. During his illness, I felt a need to reconnect to certain aspects of Judaism. A part of me felt that if perhaps I connected to those roots, I could, maybe, bring about a miraculous healing for my father. So in essence, a part of me wanted to connect because of my thirst for knowledge, and frankly, I feared that maybe the Old Testament was right. Maybe all my years of magic brought this upon my father as a punishment. As you can see, as religion is apt to do, it can cause all manner of complex layers of guilt. So that was the internal strife within me at that time. As part of my reconnection, I became very steeped in Kabbalah during this time and learned as much as I could and made it my mission to travel to the Middle East in search of the great tombs of the Kabbalists, such as Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the supposed author of the Zohar, Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, a giant in Kabbalah and teacher of Isaac Luria, as well as others. Included in this multi-year pilgrimage was several visits to tombs supposedly of those from the Old Testament, including Adam and Eve, Seth, Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, Rebekah, Jacob, Esau, and Leah. Are they really buried there? Who knows? But I do admit the energy was quite intense and has accumulated through many generations of people praying at these tombs. It is when I arrived at the tomb of Isaac Luria in Safed, Israel, or Tzfat, as it is known in Israel, when I opened up. In Safed, or Tzfat, there are dozens of tombs of the great Kabbalists. They are all painted in blue so they can be easily recognized. There is a common practice of placing your ear to the tomb of a great Jewish saint, and through some divine transmission, a message would be conveyed. I placed my ear on the tomb. I didn't hear voices or anything, but I felt within me that I was okay. I didn't need to fear what my spirit truly wanted to be, because when all is said and done, there is an underlying unity to all things, and practicing Kabbalah and praying to Isis wasn't going to send me to hell or cause my father to be sick. If anything, true, authentic spirituality might even help me bring cleaner energy to the home. From all the tombs I did this to, it was Isaac Luria's tomb that caused that shift for me, and now, so many decades later, I find myself here, writing this text on the most influential Kabbalist of all times. Who would have guessed it? I certainly wouldn't have. No Kabbalist since has been able to match this great saint in holiness and mystical knowledge. With that, before we discuss this great rabbi, I would like to first touch upon the Kabbalah itself. It won't be in-depth, but it will give you an idea so when we progress into the book, it won't be completely foreign to you. Let us proceed. There you have it. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you would like a copy of this book, it is now on pre-release. You can look it up on Amazon. I hope you enjoy it. So mote it be.